This woman, once a guardian spirit, met a tragic fate. Hung on the city wall for 3 days and nights, she perished in the flames. After death, her body faced further desecration at the hands of the tyrannical emperor, who happened to be her own apprentice, raised under her guidance. Even without the protection of the guardian spirit, the empire faced the risk of being swallowed by other cities. Yet, the emperor chose to reduce his mentor to ashes. The root of this intense hatred that turned a royal disciple into a despot traced back to the male lead's childhood. From a young age, the prince was nurtured by the nation's guardian spirit, Lady Qijin. However, he suffered daily abuse at the hands of his supposed mentor. As the prince ascended to the throne, he mercilessly eradicated everyone who had wronged him, including his mentor. Lady Qijin's desperate pleas failed to sway his unyielding heart. She informed him that all of this was a scheme by the queen to eliminate her, inciting a war against all humanity. Despite her pleas, the disciple struck down his mentor with a callous disregard. "How dare you slander the queen? Your guilt is undeniable." After all, the queen was the person he loved most in the world. And so, Lady Qijin met her cruel end at the hands of her own apprentice, the tyrant. Dark, twisted, and nauseating. Such was the contemporary working woman's appraisal of this novel. The book was penned by their company's infamous colleague, Xu Chao. When she first read it, she nearly blinded herself with its contents. Little did she know that at a recent company gathering, Xu Feng and another colleague mocked her for being an old, unmarried woman attending the event. Furious, our female protagonist verbally attacked Xu Feng's novel, equating its male lead to his real-life character, unable to distinguish between right and wrong. "Not one to back down," Xu Feng retorted. "If you were to enter the world of my novel, you wouldn't last a single round." To her dismay, Xu Feng's words seemed to manifest as she found herself cursed into the tacky novel, becoming the original character, Lady Qijin, the empire's guardian spirit who had abused the male lead in his childhood, and destined for a tragic end due to maltreatment of her apprentice. In this world, Qijin, a guardian spirit, gazed at the male protagonist who had killed her in the novel and now stood before her. Deep within, she felt a sense of resignation. Could humans truly not change their fated destinies? The male lead, now just a child, was sent to Qijin by his father, the emperor. At this moment, the second prince's mother had recently passed away, and the emperor, in his ruthless manner, sent the boy to Qijin. The emperor insisted that she take the boy as her apprentice, claiming that if Qijin refused, he would abandon the child in the wilderness to fend for himself, never to return. Facing the child's innocent eyes, Qijin pondered for a moment. Knowing the novel's ending, she realized that to survive, she needed to alter their fates, starting from this moment of their encounter. She decided to become a good mentor. She gently said, "Fine, take him back for now." By her side, the fox spirit Sueyan, who had brought the little prince in, smiled at Sheng Tingwei and said, "Great! Master is willing to take you as her disciple. Hurry, pay your respects to your new mentor." Unexpectedly, the child showed disdain and refused to step forward. Seeing this, Qijin felt embarrassed. It seemed the boy didn't like her, but considering that the male lead even murdered her in the original novel, this wasn't too surprising. Approaching the 5-year-old Sheng Tingwei, Qijin bent down and softly said, "If you don't want to call me master, you can call my name." Unexpectedly, the first words the child uttered in response were filled with disdain. Sheng Tingwei's voice was clear and loud as he lifted his head and shouted at Qijin, "Bad demon woman!" The boy looked at her and declared, "You're the bad demon woman causing disaster to the country and the people. You don't deserve to be my master." The woman pointed at by him was indeed not human, but rather a guardian spirit. On this continent, guardian spirits were often referred to as the emperor's swords, responsible for protecting the country they had made a covenant with, sharing the heavy responsibility of assisting the emperor. The stronger the guardian spirit, the more prosperous the country. This was an age-old truth in this land. However, the guardian spirit of the shadow country, Qijin, was a peculiar existence. Rumors circulated that she was immortal, extraordinarily beautiful, and possessed formidable demonic powers. Yet, every monarch she assisted met an untimely death before reaching the age of 40. Thus, the whispers of her enchanting kings and crippling royal bloodlines had long spread among the people, making her the notorious disaster bringer. The young prince Shang Tingwei, sent to the wilderness by his father and ordered to become Qi Jin's apprentice, pointed at her and said, "I don't want a demon like you as my master. I want to return to the palace to see my father." Although Qi Jin was aware of her bad reputation, being pointed at and scolded was a first for her. She thought, words can indeed be formidable. If she truly had the ability to enchant kings, why would the original Qi Jin fear this little tyrant as he grew up? Yet, living in the body of the guardian spirit and putting herself in the shoes of the character, she could understand why the original Qi Jin in the novel would mistreat her apprentice. As a member of the demon race, proud and averse to royal enslavement, being scolded by the emperor's 5-year-old son would naturally provoke anger. This tale begins centuries ago during the Human-Demon War when the demon race fell, becoming tools for various nations to solidify their power. Humans, driven by greed, treated them like caged birds. After entering into contracts, no guardian spirit could move an inch without the consent of a sovereign. Reflecting on the tragic setting in the original story, Qi Jin resolved to avoid the impending doom and build a good relationship with the future tyrant standing before her. Approaching Shang Tingwei, Qi Jin wore an indifferent expression, devoid of any anger. She softly remarked, "Your Highness, the second prince, arbitrary insults do not befit the royal demeanor." However, Shang Tingwei responded rudely, "What gives you the right to lecture me? You're nothing but a despised demoness. With so many women in the harem, why were you banished to such a remote place?" Qi Jin's expression darkened at his words. She sternly said, "Enough!" Her anger mixed with bewilderment, not because Shang Tingwei angered her with his disrespectful tone, but because she couldn't fathom why the esteemed prince of the Shadow Country was being educated in such a brash manner. Was it innate or a deliberate act by someone else? Pondering for a moment, she considered that the young tyrant might be on the wrong path and couldn't allow it to continue. She questioned, "If your father banished me to the wilderness out of disdain, what about you? According to your logic, wouldn't your father despise you even more by making you bow to me as your teacher?" Shang Tingwei was momentarily speechless. Qi Jin continued, "The harem is filled with countless consorts, yet I am the only guardian spirit. You, on the other hand, are one of many royal offspring. Why were you abandoned?" Feeling the need to defend himself, Shang Tingwei stammered, "You're talking nonsense. I won't be abandoned." Qi Jin countered, "But the decree was clear. If I refused to accept you as my disciple, you were to be left in the wilderness to fend for yourself. Doesn't that count as abandonment? Are you deluding yourself? If you refuse to face reality, feel free to delude yourself away. I don't need a disobedient disciple." With that, she turned and addressed her fox spirit attendant. "Shuyan, let's go back to our quarters." Qi Jin left without looking back, leaving the young prince standing there in disbelief. Are they just leaving like this? Shouldn't someone be consoling me? His petulant face couldn't hold back the tears. Back in the palace, everyone would cater to his every whim. But why was this demoness different? Now, in this unfamiliar and frigid land, no one was there to help him. Alone in the cold and fearing the unknown, tears streaked down the once spoiled face of the little prince. In the vast expanse of icy wilderness, the little boy found himself abandoned, surrounded by the piercing howl of the freezing wind and the desperate cries of hungry wolves on the icy plains. Shivering uncontrollably, he couldn't help but sneeze. As Qi Jin, accompanied by her fox spirit attendant Shuyan, walked away, Shuyan couldn't help but speak up. "Mistress, it's freezing here. Are you really leaving the second prince out there?" Qi Jin reassured, "Don't worry. Though he's arrogant and spoiled, he's not foolish enough to freeze himself to death. However, his haughty and disrespectful demeanor will lead him into trouble sooner or later." As she spoke, Qi Jin pondered, "Even though there's still a decade until the point in the book where the male lead tortures and kills me, Can I truly reform him from a young age to avoid that tragic fate? Meanwhile, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed behind them. Sounding somewhat unsteady, the second prince nervously ran up to catch up with Qijin and Shuyan. He reached out, grabbing Qijin's clothes, and pleaded, "Don't go." Qijin turned to look at him, maintaining her indifferent expression, and asked, "Is there something else, Your Highness?" The young prince, experiencing the feeling of being utterly alone for the first time, felt a surge of emotions. Feeling a bit embarrassed, he whispered to Qijin, "No, please don't go." Qijin glanced at the somewhat lost Sheng Tingwei and asked, "Why should I listen to you?" Sheng Tingwei grabbed her, continuing, "I know I was wrong. I won't call you a demoness again." His eyes held a mix of grievance and distress. "Please, don't abandon me." As the words left his lips, Sheng Tingwei suddenly collapsed, as if he had used up his last bit of strength to utter those words. Qijin was taken aback. She hadn't expected Sheng Tingwei's body to be so overdrawn. As she approached for a closer look, she could still hear the murmurs of the fallen Sheng Tingwei, as if speaking to Qijin, and yet, as if consoling himself, "Don't abandon me. I'll be obedient." The woman, unable to bear the emperor giving her son to a demoness, sought to eliminate the emperor to save her son. However, viewed as a threat by the emperor, she met a cruel end. Meanwhile, the little prince sent to the desolate land lay quietly on the bed, stricken by illness due to the hardships of travel and the biting cold. Seeing the young one pleading, Qijin's soft heart brought him into her quarters, nursing him back to health and cooling his fever. Observing the now weakened little prince lying in bed, Qijin couldn't help feeling a sense of melancholy. Who could have imagined that this fragile child would become the ruthless tyrant of the future? Sheng Tingwei lay on the bed, even with closed eyes. His brows were still tightly knit, as if in extreme discomfort. He was dreaming a bad dream, recalling the night his mother died. Though he had lovingly cared for her in the morning, she turned into a cold, lifeless body by the afternoon. His father, indifferent to her death, left him alone to weep by the breathless body of his mother. Watching Sheng Tingwei lying on the bed, tormented even in his sleep, crying, "Mother, don't die," Qijin thought he must be having a nightmare. Mother referred to Lady Hua, right? Recalling the original story where Lady Hua, out of love for her son, opposed the emperor's decision to send him to the desolate land and was killed by the emperor, Sheng Tingwei held a deep grudge. He believed that if he hadn't come to the desolate land to study under Qijin, his mother would still be alive. This resentment laid the foundation for their inevitable conflict in the future. Realizing this, Qijin knew she had to extinguish this revenge-driven fire within Sheng Tingwei as early as possible to avoid a disastrous outcome. In the midst of the child's slumber, he suddenly turned over, causing Qijin to snap back to reality. She turned her head just in time to see him on the verge of rolling off the bed, prompting her to quickly reach out and catch him. As Sheng Tingwei sensed the movement and opened his eyes to wake up, the first thing he saw was Qijin's stunning yet unfamiliar face. Startled, he reflexively struggled, and with a sharp sound, Sheng Tingwei's small hand accidentally cut a gash on Qijin's flawless visage. Qijin's expression darkened. At this moment, with Sheng Tingwei still in her arms, he was taken aback. In the midst of the commotion, he blurted out an apology, trembling, "I didn't mean to. Please don't eat me. Don't dig out my heart." Sheng Tingwei, caught in a moment of fear and awe, recalled the palace rumors that the guardian demon in this desolate land, Qijin, was cruel and bloodthirsty, fond of digging out people's hearts and devouring them. Tears welled up in his eyes at the thought, and he continued pleading, "I didn't mean to scratch you. Please don't eat my heart." Observing his panicked state, Qijin was bewildered. She gently released Sheng Tingwei, explaining, "Those are just rumors. I don't eat human hearts." The child's eyes showed some confusion as he softly asked, "Really?" Qijin nodded, ruffling his hair, and comforted, "Neither I nor Shuyan eat people, so don't worry, you're very safe." After a while, Qijin finally realized a slight pain on her face from the scratch inflicted by the child. She winced, and Sheng Tingwei, noticing her reaction, had a hint of remorse in his eyes. Worriedly, he asked, "Are you bleeding?" Will you die? Chijin, feeling a bit embarrassed, thought, does this kid lack common sense? She replied, it's just a minor injury. A little blood won't kill me. However, Sheng Tingwei's eyes filled with tears again, and he stammered, but my mother bled and died. Not convinced, he continued, you said you wouldn't eat my heart. Seeing Sheng Tingwei's disbelief, Chijin continued, look at me. She extended her fingers and performed a small spell on her face. In the blink of an eye, the wound disappeared. Chijin smiled at Sheng Tingwei and asked, how about now? Sheng Tingwei, mouth agape, uttered exclamations of disbelief. He hesitantly reached out to touch the spot where she had been injured, and she reassured him, see, I didn't lie. The wound doesn't bleed, and I won't die. As Sheng Tingwei's hand touched her cheek, he softly said, doesn't it hurt? Chijin, still smiling, replied, not at all. Hearing this, the young prince withdrew his hand, as if recalling some unpleasant memories. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he lamented, you lied. The Empress had someone beat me last time, and I hurt for a long time. Surprised by this revelation, Chijin asked, what? The Empress hit you? She reminisced about the original story where the Emperor had 4 sons. The Queen's son seemed the most outstanding, seemingly destined for the throne, yet for some mysterious reason, the Emperor favored the second prince, Sheng Tingwei. Although she couldn't recall all the details about important characters, one thing was certain, the Queen regarded Sheng Wei as a thorn in her side. She had employed various schemes against him, and undoubtedly she wouldn't easily let go of the second prince. However, at this moment, the Queen remained unaware that Sheng Tingwei had been sent to her residence. There were still 10 years before Sheng Tingwei would return to the palace, making him temporarily safe. Contemplating this, Chijin formulated a plan. In order to avoid a tragic fate, she resolved to treat him well and guide this future young emperor. When he ascended to the throne, she wanted to ensure that she, even if without accomplishments, would have no faults. Chijin knelt down, holding the young prince's hands, and tenderly said, with me around, no one will dare to bully you. I will always believe in protecting you. In this moment, the young prince, who had endured so much, felt warmth flooding his heart, and he couldn't hold back his tears any longer. Chijin embraced him, patting his back, and continued to softly promise Sheng Tingwei, remember, no matter when, your master will always be by your side. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. The disciple once Chijin picked up in the snowy fields had grown into a young man. At this moment, the young man briskly approached, calling out, Master! Master! He had planned to find his good master to fly kites together. Upon entering the room, he saw Chijin, with one hand supporting her chin, dozing off quietly, as if she were a captivating fairy in a serene painting. Sheng Tingwei walked closer, noticing her closed eyes and the rhythmic sound of her even breathing. Seeing her furrow her brow and murmur, Tingwei, don't. Sheng Tingwei thought, Master must be talking in her sleep. How adorable. Moving in to hear what she might say in her dream, he softly inquired, Master, don't what? The young man gazed at the sleeping beauty before him. Her eyelashes were so long, and her hair emitted a unique fragrance. For a moment, he became a bit mesmerized, and his heart started to pound. Realizing something was amiss, his ears began to burn. It was strange. Why was his heartbeat accelerating like this? Meanwhile, Chijin was in the midst of a dream. She dreamed of an older Sheng Tingwei, expressionless and cold, pointing a sword at her. She struggled, ran away, and pleaded not to be killed. She couldn't fathom why the young man she had treated well and towered diligently for all these years would want to bring her to the brink of death. The emotionless voice of the man in her dream echoed, Fate cannot be violated, and the ending of the book cannot be changed. You must die. Chijin abruptly woke up from the dream, opening her eyes to find someone's warm breath nearby. Without thinking, she grabbed the person's hand, feeling a bit defensive, and asked, Tingwei, what are you doing? Why did you sneak in? Did you memorize the military strategy book I asked you to study earlier? Sheng Tingwei, feeling a bit wronged, explained, I've already memorized it. I came to find Master to fly kites and take a break. I didn't expect to see Master asleep as soon as I entered, and then suddenly you grabbed my hand so tightly. After hearing his explanation, Qi-jin, realizing her mistake, apologized to Sheng Tingwei, explaining, "Master just had a bad dream. In a moment of panic, I didn't pay attention to my strength." She also asked if she had accidentally hurt him. Sheng Tingwei felt a bit anxious and asked Qi-jin, "I've never seen you look so terrified. What did you dream about, Master? Was it something dreadful?" Qi-jin suddenly couldn't meet his gaze, turning her head and whispering, "I dreamt of a big demon trying to kill me?" Sheng Tingwei's young face frowned, replying, "With me around, no one can harm you, Master." Despite his young age and lack of experience, his demeanor still exuded an air of royal authority that shouldn't be underestimated. Unaware that the big demon in her dream was this cheeky kid himself, Qi-jin, feeling a bit embarrassed, had no idea. Suddenly, fluffy snowflakes drifted in through the door. The weather, clear just a moment ago, had turned into a flurry of snow, typical of the peculiar climate in this desolate land. Sheng Tingwei, unfazed by the unusual weather, calmly said to Qi-jin, "It's snowing, spring snow. Looks like we can't fly kites together today." Seeing his composed expression, Qi-jin smiled and remarked, "I remember when you first arrived in this desolate land, you hadn't seen snow. It was quite a novelty back then." Recalling the scene from 10 years ago, Sheng Tingwei was half his current height, calling her master with a childish voice. Curious, he asked, "What are these white things? Is it snow? Like the snow mentioned in textbooks? Why does it snow?" The protagonist, who had transmigrated into a novel, was currently explaining to the young boy using 21st century scientific principles. Snow is water vapor in the air. When the water vapor condenses into water, droplets or ice crystals, and falls from the sky, it becomes the snow we see. Hearing this explanation for the first time, the young Sheng Tingwei was puzzled. He asked, "But the palace priests say snow is a gift from the gods." Without much thought, Qi-jin, accustomed to her role, blurted out, "That's just superstition. We need to believe in science." Intrigued, the young Sheng Tingwei was captivated by the unfamiliar and fascinating terminology. He continued to inquire, "Master, what is science? It sounds quite impressive." Seeing him like this, Qi-jin knew that explaining would be an endless pit, so she quickly intervened, "You're asking too many questions." The scene shifted, and with a sigh, Qi-jin realized that time had flown by. She had been living in this world for 10 years, and her once carefree disciple, who used to speak without reservation, was now taller than her. Despite their consistent life in the desolate land for a decade, there was one thing that deeply worried her. Her disciple excelled in both literature and martial arts, but since coming to the desolate land, he would inexplicably cough up blood and run a fever every few days. Qi-jin had even used her spirit power to examine his body, but found no clues. At this rate, he might not live past 20. Qi-jin even suspected that this might be the author's way of forcefully pushing a tragic fate onto the male lead. Thinking of this, the young Sheng Tingwei began to cough again. After a few coughs, his old ailment flared up. Qi-jin was concerned. Why was he coughing again? She quickly took out a handkerchief and wiped his face. She said to Sheng Tingwei, "If you continue like this, your body won't be able to handle it." Hearing this unexpected concern, the young man was momentarily stunned, feeling warmth in his heart. He softly replied, "Don't worry, Master, I can endure this." After saying this, he hesitated for a moment and then somewhat shyly pointed to the handkerchief Qi-jin used to wipe him, asking, "Master, can I have this handkerchief?" Qi-jin replied, "It's dirty now. If you like it, I'll get you a clean one." Unexpectedly, the boy shook his head and began to act spoiled. "No, but I want this one." Seeing his persistent and cute expression, Qi-jin was speechless. She hadn't expected this young rascal, whom she had raised for 10 years, to have such a strange collecting habit. Seeing Sheng Tingwei's unyielding stance, she reached out and handed him the handkerchief, advising, "Here you go. Remember to wash it before using it." However, as he took the handkerchief, the boy's fingertips felt Qi-jin's residual warmth, and Sheng Tingwei's heart rate unexpectedly accelerated. "Thump, thump, thump," he muttered to himself. "It has Master's scent." Sniffing the handkerchief, he exclaimed, "This is Master's scent. It smells so good." Year after year, day after day, when Qi-jin first transmigrated into the book, her sole focus was on pleasing the male lead to ensure her survival. She anticipated the day when the young male lead ascended to the throne, allowing her to dissolve the contract with the country and escape the tragic ending written in the book, returning to her original world. However, as she accompanied Sheng Tingwei in his gradual growth, bonds formed unconsciously over the 10 years of constant companionship. She had come to regard him as her true family, sharing in his joys and sorrows. Watching the male lead from the original book grow day by day, Qijin believed that this time she wouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past. When young Sheng Tingwei told her that they would be together forever, Qijin felt her world illuminated by a gentle glow, even forgetting the fear of facing death. Gradually returning to her senses, she looked at the youthful face before her, puzzled about the unexplained bouts of coughing that plagued his otherwise healthy body. Worried, she questioned whether she could truly change their fate. Suddenly, the young man's hand reached toward her forehead, his voice as gentle as water as he reassured Qijin. "Master, don't worry. The world is full of wonders, and there must be a way to cure my condition. I'll be fine. Don't furrow your brow. It doesn't look good when you frown." Qijin felt her brow relax, relieved by his words. She believed that she would surely find a way to save both herself and her disciple. The scene shifted. The emperor of the Shadow Kingdom was seated, coughing. Standing beside him was a man draped in a cloak, his face still concealed. Seeing the emperor unwell, the cloaked man quickly advised him to take care of his health and avoid overexertion. The emperor dismissed the concern, claiming he was fine as long as Sheng Tingwei was still alive to extend his life. After a while, he continued, "How are things on your end?" The cloaked figure responded with a cold and emotionless tone. "All preparations are complete. We only await the right moment. Your Majesty can summon the second prince back to the palace." "What? The princess of our nation is missing?" In the imperial palace of the Dark Kingdom, Emperor Longsho erupted in fury. He questioned how they could face the Shadow Kingdom after Princess Qiying, who had gone for a political marriage, was nowhere to be found. The courtiers, in fear, kneeled before him, rendering the atmosphere within the hall solid and stifling. At this critical moment, a man with a confident voice interrupted the tension, addressing the emperor. "Your Majesty, the princess is young, her mind immature. I believe she's just playing around and wouldn't joke about such important matters." This man, radiating an extraordinary aura, was the guardian spirit Yao Mo of the Dark Kingdom. The emperor paused for a moment, sighed, and said, "You, as her mentor, always indulge her. It's because of you that she has become so spoiled." Shaking his head with a sense of worry, he continued, "Now, the Shadow Kingdom might use our refusal for the political marriage as an excuse to provoke and avoid a ceasefire." Hearing this, Guardian Yao Mo stepped forward, bowed with both hands, and pledged, "Your Majesty, allow me to personally search for the princess to ease your concerns." Meow, meow. Spring had arrived, and the animals in the desolate land were in their mating season. Qijin, at this leisurely moment, sat by the window, feeling the refreshing breath of spring. However, she complained about being constantly disturbed by stray cats and dogs at night, preventing her from getting a good night's sleep. Even her attendant, the fox spirit Shuiyan, spent nights carousing with a vixen and failed to return promptly. On the side, the young man Sheng Tingwei, who was practicing calligraphy, overheard his master's murmurs and asked with some confusion, "Master, what is mating?" Qijin, upon hearing this, thought, "Right, this boy is 15 years old this year, reaching the age of love enlightenment. However, for all these years, Sheng Tingwei has only had me as the female around him. Although I have diligently cultivated our master-disciple relationship, I forgot to teach him about matters between men and women." She remembered that in the novel, the male lead, Sheng Tingwei, despite being a cruel and ruthless tyrant, harbored deep feelings for the princess of the Dark Kingdom, Qiying. As the princess, Qiying had a pure and adorable appearance with a mischievous personality. Growing up surrounded by the stars and moon, she was deeply loved, a typical setting for the female lead in novels. Due to the plot's needs, and to end the vicious cycle of constant warfare between the Shadow Kingdom and the Dark Kingdom, the female lead, Qiying, was sent to the Shadow Kingdom for a political marriage. Qijin vaguely recalled how it was described in the original book. When Sheng Tingwei was 15 years old, he miraculously survived a life-threatening situation from Chijin, rescued by the team escorting Qiying for the political marriage. The protagonists, male and female, developed mutual affection, and the marriage was successfully arranged. To make Qiying the most esteemed woman in the world, Shengting faced numerous challenges, ascended to the throne as the emperor, and cleared obstacles for her, ensuring a stable reign. In the original book, one of the reasons for Qijin's death was the result of Sheng Tingwei safeguarding Qiying. Lost in thought, Qijin couldn't help but feel the novel's plot was a bit over the top, cringeworthy even. After a brief pause, her musings were abruptly interrupted by a wave of the hand from the young apprentice. Just a moment ago, Sheng Tingwei had been earnestly seeking guidance on the concept of mating, but now his mentor seemed lost in thought. Intrigued, he approached Qijin and softly called out to her, seeking answers. Grasping her apprentice's hand, she explained, "Mating, you see, is essentially falling in love with someone special and then bringing offspring into the world." The young apprentice, encountering this fresh term, blurted out, "Love? What's that supposed to mean?" Qijin continued with a straight face. "Love is about creating a feeling of happiness, joy, and ease through language, eye contact, or the touch of the skin." After this explanation, Qijin, feeling a bit parched, took a sip from her teacup. She then turned to her young apprentice and asked, "Do you understand now?" The young man, after a moment of contemplation, seemed to grasp the concept. With a crisp voice, he declared, "I feel happy and joyful every day when I see my master, so I must be in love with her." Qijin, in the midst of a sip, was caught off guard and sprayed water everywhere. Coughing a few times in haste, she hurriedly clarified, "No, it's not like that. The relationship between master and apprentice is quite different from a romantic one." Putting down her teacup, she continued, "In any case, let me tell you, when you fall in love, you might lose control of your emotions, be led astray easily by ill-intentioned individuals. When that happens, you must stay vigilant, so you don't go down the wrong path." Qijin thought that now was the perfect time to give the male lead a preventive measure, avoiding him blindly pampering his wife after the male and female leads meet and causing a catastrophe. Unexpectedly, Sheng Tingwei's expression darkened upon hearing this. "So, the reason for the animals mating is because they can't control their desires, disturbing my master's sleep." It seemed that despite Qijin's well-intentioned advice, he completely missed the point. Determined, the young apprentice clenched his fist, thinking he needed to figure out a way to ensure his master got a good night's sleep. The scene shifted. Night fell. On this pleasant spring night, in the depths of the foliage, numerous cats and dogs were engaged in the significant events of their animal lives. Amidst the sweet moments, a menacing young man intruded upon them. With a cold gaze, Sheng Tingwei sternly addressed the small animals, brandishing a sword. "It's you guys, disturbing my master's rest in the middle of the night, isn't it?" Threatening the creatures in the bushes, he warned, "Tonight is just a warning. If you disturb my master again tomorrow, I'll catch and beat you, understand?" This night was still far from peaceful, and the master in the distant house could probably hear the animals cried. Yet the cries were different from those of the previous nights, carrying a hint of misery. After a few busy hours, Sheng Tingwei clapped his hands. The place was now quiet, no more discordant noises. Satisfied, he nodded, thinking he had solved the problem, and his master could finally have a good night's sleep. Little did he know that this scene had frightened the fox spirit Hui Yan, who had sneaked out for the night. He thought, "How terrifying! I wonder if the master knows about the terrifying side of the second prince." Meanwhile, Qijin was already sound asleep, completely unaware of the various tragic incidents that occurred in the mountains tonight. Just as Sheng Tingwei was about to return to his room, there came a rustling sound behind the young man. He thought, "These animals just never stop," and turned around, shouting loudly, "Who's there?" After a while, a figure slowly emerged from behind the rocks. It was none other than the original female lead from the novel, Qiying. Sheng Tingwei, upon encountering a stranger, pointed his sword directly at her, cautiously inquiring, "Who are you?" Qiying was startled by the stern voice and found herself sitting on the ground, replying weakly, "Yes, I'm sorry." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I got lost! Please don't kill me!" Meanwhile, Tingwei, holding his sword against her, raised an eyebrow, looking thoughtful. It had been a decade since he last saw a stranger. How did this woman find her way in, past the protective barrier laid by his master in the desolate land? Facing the sharp and cold blade, the girl's beautiful eyes teared up, and she explained, "I didn't mean to intrude. I encountered wild dogs on the road, got lost, and ended up running here." She had never been scolded so harshly before. Feeling wronged, she burst into tears. Sheng Tingwei, a bit embarrassed by her reaction, retracted his sword and coldly replied, "I won't kill you. This is not the place for you." He pointed behind her, indicating that she should follow the path and leave. Unexpectedly, after a pause, the girl tearfully said to Sheng Tingwei, "I've sprained my foot. I can't walk now, and I can't even stand up." Although Sheng Tingwei felt it was troublesome, he recalled his master Qijin's teachings about helping others being a virtue. Within his capacity, he should assist the weak. Thinking of this, Sheng Tingwei extended his hand to the girl and calmly said, "Give me your hand. If you trust me, I can take you to where I live for a night's rest. When my master wakes up, she can check your foot." Upon hearing this, the girl softly thanked him. Sheng Tingwei carried the girl on his back, thinking of quickly resolving this major inconvenience. As he turned, he warned, "Hold on tight. I won't be responsible if you fall." However, the girl, now leaning against Sheng Tingwei's broad shoulder, involuntarily blushed. It was a sensation she had never experienced before. Leaning against Sheng Tingwei's warm body, she felt a sense of warmth and security. She thought to herself, she had never met someone like him before. A dreamless night. The next day, Qijin woke up, yawning and stretching lazily. The sunlight was bright, and spring was in the air. She thought she had slept so well, a rare occurrence lately. Unexpectedly, the door slammed open, and Swayan hurriedly entered, urgently reporting to Qijin, "Something big is happening, master. The second prince brought a woman back last night." Qijin, taken aback, exclaimed, "What?" She immediately got up and went to the front hall to see what was going on. The scene shifted, and now Sheng Tingwei, Qijin, and the girl Qi Ying were sitting together in the hall. Qijin cast a suspicious glance at Qi Ying, then turned to her young disciple. The atmosphere was a bit awkward. After observing for a while, Qijin finally spoke. "Is this the girl you picked up last night?" The girl nodded meekly, giving a polite confirmation. Qi Ying thought to herself, "So, this is the master the young man mentioned? She looks so young. I thought it would be an old man with a wise and immortal appearance." Now, Sheng Tingwei spoke up, asking, "Master, why was she able to enter the desolate land?" In fact, Qijin was also puzzled. She had set up strict barriers around the desolate land, making it seemingly impossible for ordinary people to enter. How did this girl manage to get in? After some contemplation, Qijin replied, "I'm not sure about the details. We'll discuss it later." She then turned to Qi Ying and asked, "Miss, I heard you were injured. Let me take a look." The girl touched the sprained area from last night, thinking, "Actually, after a night's rest, it doesn't hurt anymore. But if I tell the truth, they'll probably send me away. However, I haven't learned about the young man's name who saved me." Thinking this, she sneakily glanced at Sheng Tingwei standing behind Qijin. Meanwhile, Qijin bent down to examine her injuries. After a thorough check, Qijin said, "It's just a common sprain, no big issue. Rest for a few days, and you'll be fine." Upon hearing this, Qi Ying directly asked, "Can I stay here to recuperate and leave when I'm fully recovered?" Her voice carried some anticipation. Qijin smiled at her and replied, "Of course, miss. If you don't mind, after your recovery, my disciple can escort you back." Qi Ying expressed her gratitude, and Qijin nodded, continuing, "I'm Qijin. May I know your name, miss?" Qi Ying, originally the princess of the Dark Kingdom, furrowed her brows upon hearing this. Realizing her escape from an arranged marriage, she was cautious not to reveal her true identity to the unknown person before her. Crafting an alias on the spot, she said, "I'm Qi Yu." Turning to Sheng Tingwei with hopeful eyes, she smiled and asked, "May I inquire about this young gentleman's name?" Sheng Tingwei, with an air of indifference, replied, "No need for formalities. You can call me Tingwei." Qi Ying rose and courteously bowed to Sheng Tingwei, expressing her gratitude. Tingwei, for saving my life, I am forever indebted. I shall repay this favor in the future. However, Sheng Tingwei merely took a sip of tea and calmly remarked, My master taught me to accumulate virtuous deeds. If you wish to express gratitude, thank her. Qi Jin, intrigued, questioned Qi Ying. Miss Qi, judging by your attire, you seem to come from a wealthy family. How did you end up alone in this desolate land? Qi Ying sighed, before slowly explaining. I won't conceal the truth. I fled from an arranged marriage. My father, a merchant in a distant region, unintentionally offended a local high-ranking official. Faced with suppression, he sought a resolution by marrying me off to the official's son. Unwilling to marry a stranger, I escaped on the way to the wedding and got lost. It was then that Tingwei came to my rescue. Qi Ying fabricated this story, hoping to gain sympathy for a temporary stay. Qi Jin, after hearing this, felt indignant. Appalled by the idea of a father selling his daughter for personal gain, she comforted Qi Ying with a pat on the shoulder. Miss Qi, rest assured, stay here peacefully. When you decide to leave, I will send people to escort you. Upon hearing this, Qi Ying's heart finally settled, and she sincerely thanked Qi Jin. Thank you, Master Qi Jin. Meanwhile, in the distant imperial palace of the Shadow Kingdom, a pigeon received a new mission. Inside the emperor's hall, a figure bowed and reported, Your Majesty, a pigeon has been sent to the desolate land, summoning the second prince back to the palace for a political marriage. The emperor of the Shadow Kingdom remained expressionless, his voice icy as he said, Let's see how much progress my good son has made after 10 years. Back at the dining table, the master and disciple, along with the fox demon Suayon, were joined by a new figure, the rescued Qi Ying. After a restful night, Qi Jin personally prepared steamed buns for breakfast. She politely said, We don't have too much food here. This is my homemade steamed buns. Please don't mind, Miss Qi. Qi Ying, eloquent and smiling, replied, I'm not picky, and with Master Qi Jin's excellent medical skills, I'm sure her cooking is just as good. Suayon, sitting on the side, couldn't help but comment, What does medical skill have to do with cooking? Qi Jin chuckled and turned to Qi Ying, asking, Would you mind a pre-meal pop quiz? Confused, Qi Ying asked, What does that mean? It sounds interesting. Suayon explained, It's an academic check. So, Qi Jin turned to Sheng Tingwei and said, Listen to the question. Qi Jin paused, and then recited a tricky question unfamiliar to Qi Ying. The problem was to calculate whether a family, using 3 pounds of oil, 2 pounds each of sugar, salt, and soy sauce monthly, could maintain a healthy lifestyle. Qi Ying, astonished, asked, Can this even be calculated? Confidently, Qi Jin nodded, proud of her teachings over the past decade. Sheng Tingwei, without hesitation, swiftly and skillfully began to answer, using an abacus. With a total of approximately 9 pounds of seasoning used monthly, each person consumes about 50 grams daily, exceeding the regular intake by twice. Confident in his calculation, the young man concluded, The answer is the body cannot maintain health. Qi Jin raised a thumb. Correct. Sheng Tingwei, with a casual glance, replied, Master, today's question was too easy. Next time, please make it more challenging. Qi Jin nodded and thought, Next time, I'll have to test this kid's mettle. Watching the entire process, Qi Ying was in awe. Was it this easy? Even with her extensive education in the palace, she couldn't answer such a tricky question. Admiration welled up in her heart. Tingwei is truly remarkable, not only willing to help, but also incredibly talented. In the unforgiving waters, the distressed girl struggled, crying out for help. Yet, on the shore, a young man remained unmoved, standing still as he watched the girl gradually weaken. Unfazed, he calmly uttered, This is all your own doing. Gasping for air, unable to breathe, the girl's body stiffened and she descended straight into the depths of the pond. Was she really going to die like this? She didn't want to die. In desperation, she prayed for someone to come to her rescue. As her consciousness blurred, she heard a splash, a figure breaking the water's surface, approaching her. The story begins an hour ago when the four were having breakfast. Qi Ying, accustomed to the luxuries of court life, took a bite of Qi Jin's handmade bun. To her, it tasted undercooked and hard to swallow. She glanced at Sheng Tingwei and wondered, does Tingwei eat this kind of food every day? Yet, he seemed to relish it. Noticing Qi Ying's subtle expression, Qijin inquired, "What's wrong, Miss Qi? Do the buns not suit your taste?" Qi Ying quickly shook her head, replying, "No, it's just that I miss home a bit." Unspoken was her desire for the palace's delicious meals. Softly, Qijin extended her hand, offering comfort. "If you miss home, I can arrange for you to return at any time." Qi Ying hesitated, thinking about her father's wrath. Returning meant being forced into another political marriage with an unfamiliar man. In her mind, she wished she could choose someone like Sheng Tingwei as her husband. That night, if not for this young man's timely intervention, she would have spent the night exposed to the elements in the wilderness and had her life hanging by a thread. Recalling the broad back and warm body temperature of Sheng Tingwei, a hint of a fantasy played in Qi Ying's mind. She thought, if things could develop in this way, that would be perfect. After the master-disciple duo and the little fox Suayon had their fill, they departed. Princess Qi Ying sneaked to the edge of the pond because she hadn't finished her buns. She decided to feed the leftover bun to the fish secretly. Holding her breath, she whispered, "It would be bad if someone found out." However, as fate would have it, Sheng Tingwei's voice suddenly came from behind. "What are you doing? Feeding my master's hard-earned buns to the fish?" Qi Ying quickly hid the buns behind her, ready to explain, but Sheng Tingwei forcefully gripped her hand. Qi Ying struggled, but before she knew it, she stepped on nothing and let out a scream as she fell into the water. In the midst of her struggle and cries for help, Sheng Tingwei stood there silently, watching. Fortunately, Qijin arrived in time, diving in to rescue Qi Ying. With a quick rescue, Qi Ying only choked on a few mouthfuls of water, and no harm was done. As Qijin hurriedly instructed Suayon to take Qi Ying to rest, before leaving the girl cast a thoughtful glance at the silent Sheng Tingwei. After the others had left, Qijin turned to Sheng Tingwei and, with a stern tone, said, "Tingwei, come with me to the study." In the study, Qijin's anger was unleashed. She angrily asked, "Do you realize your mistake?" Sheng Tingwei calmly replied, "I don't know what mistake I made." Qijin furrowed her brows and questioned, "You pushed Qi Ying into the lake. If I hadn't coincidentally passed by, the consequences would have been unimaginable." As the events unfolded today, there was a sense of disappointment in Qijin's heart. Little did she expect that after nurturing him for 10 years, hoping he would deviate from the cruel and ruthless character in the original novel, he would resort to violence against a vulnerable girl. Hearing this, Sheng Tingwei, unwilling to accept the blame, retorted, "I didn't push her. She refused to hand over the bun and fell by herself." "What bun?" Qijin questioned, puzzled. Sheng Tingwei hesitated for a moment, as if feeling a bit embarrassed, then replied, "It's the bun you made this morning. She took it to feed the fish, but denied it. Clearly, she intentionally fell into the water to cover up the evidence." Qijin fell silent upon hearing this unexpected revelation. Sheng Tingwei continued, "Master, I don't like this girl. She does things sneakily, and her gaze towards me is strange. Let's send her back." After hearing Sheng Tingwei's explanation, Qijin sighed in relief and responded, "We took her in after you saved her. Sending her back now would be breaking our promise, wouldn't it?" Sheng Tingwei, feeling a bit overwhelmed, questioned, "Does that mean if she decides to stay, we have to keep her forever?" Qijin shook her head. "I have my judgment. I've already lifted the barrier around this desolate land. Once her family comes looking for her, they should find her soon." Relieved, Sheng Tingwei said, "I see, Master. You are so smart." Qijin smiled and reminded him, "All visitors are guests. Don't forget the teachings I've instilled in you. Don't make things difficult for a young girl." As she spoke, Suayon hurriedly entered the room. "Miss Qi's family is here to find her." It seemed like fate had a way of bringing what was needed at the right moment. At this point, Qi Ying, who had just changed into dry clothes after her plunge, saw her long-lost family members. She quickly ran into her master's arms, displaying a sense of affection. Qijin, Sheng Tingwei, and Suayon arrived from a distance, greeting Qi Ying with enthusiasm. "Miss Qi, I heard your family came looking for you?" Qi Ying nodded, introducing, "This is my master." The man beside her, Yao Mo, gave a slight bow. I'm Yaomo. My disciple has been mischievous. Sorry for causing trouble for everyone. Upon hearing this, Chijin's heart skipped a beat. Yaomo? Was he the same Yaomo she knew? The Yaomo from the original story served as the guardian daemon and military strategist in the Dark Kingdom, the mentor of the female protagonist. Why would he appear here? Chijin glanced again at Qiying and Yaomo. Could this girl be the female protagonist? Qiying, no longer hiding, softly explained. I'm sorry for concealing my identity earlier. I was afraid of startling you. In truth, I am Princess Qiying of the Dark Kingdom. Hearing this, Qijin internally exclaimed, This is a disaster. She never imagined that she would save the future protagonist who would eventually cause her demise. Seeing Qijin's silence, Qiying spoke. Master Qijin, are you angry with me? I didn't mean to hide my identity. Qijin, upon hearing the explanation, smiled calmly. I believe you had your reasons. If I've been impolite in any way, please forgive me. Qiying quickly shook her head. I won't blame you. Both you and Tingwei have saved my life. Hearing this, Qijin started to ponder again. After all, she had been living in this novel for 10 years and gradually grasped some patterns. Although she could change certain plot points, she couldn't prevent crucial events. Just like her initial attempts to avoid encountering the male lead failed, and he was sent to her when he was 5 years old. This time seemed no different. It appeared she couldn't prevent the meeting of the male and female protagonists. Perhaps she would only have a chance to return to the real world when she fully understood the rules of this world. However, the crucial plot point of the female protagonist becoming the Empress was still 5 years away. Qijin remembered from the original book that she had repeatedly urged ministers to impeach the queen, leading to a significant conflict between herself and Qiying. If she wanted to survive, she had to prove that she posed no threat to the female lead during this period. Thinking about this, Qijin began to plan for the upcoming developments in the story. With the current events settling down, Yaomo spoke slowly. Princess, it's getting late. We should head back. Qijin thought, I might as well boost my favorability in front of the female lead. She smiled and said, The terrain in the desolate land is complex. Let me have someone escort you both. Qiying sweetly nodded at the suggestion. Yaomo also responded friendly. For the kindness you've shown today, I'll report to His Majesty about your merits when I return. Having said that, he glanced back. Princess, let's go. However, the little princess hesitated at this moment. Her gaze shifted towards the quiet young man standing behind Qijin. Qiying bit her lip, made a bold decision, took off the jade pendant from her waist, and said crisply, Tingwei, please accept this jade pendant. I was wrong at the lake just now, and this jade pendant serves as an apology. Unexpectedly, Sheng Tingwei declined with indifference. That matter is already in the past, princess. There's no need to worry about it. However, Yaomo, standing nearby, was surprised. The princess wants to give her late mother's keepsake to this young man. What has happened during my absence? Qiying, upon hearing the refusal, became a bit nervous. Even so, I still hope Tingwei you can accept it. Her heart pounded, silently pleading, Please don't refuse me this time. Yet, Sheng Tingwei, after hearing her, calmly uttered 2 words. For what? This jade pendant is my late mother's keepsake. She once told me to give it to the one I admire. Qiying took a deep breath, clenched her small hand, and determinedly continued, Tingwei, I like you. After saying this, the little princess sighed in relief. However, both of the mentors were shocked. How could a princess confess to a commoner? Yaomo quickly spoke. Princess, what nonsense are you talking about? Qijin was also puzzled. The original plot clearly had the male lead being saved by the female lead when he was dying, and now the story seemed to be reversed. Yaomo held Qiying back, advising her not to act impulsively, but the little princess couldn't listen. Master, I am well aware of my actions. I only like Tingwei. I don't want to marry someone I don't know. She refused to let go of Yaomo's hand. I want to hear Tingwei's response. Master, please let go of me. As the two struggled, Sheng Tingwei finally spoke. I'm sorry, princess. I cannot reciprocate your feelings. Why? Qiying didn't expect him to refuse so straightforwardly. Sheng Tingwei's gaze became evasive. Because I already have someone in my heart. Qijin, hearing this, was even more confused. Her disciple hadn't left the desolate land for 10 years, so where did this person in his heart come from? Qi Ying, upon hearing this, wanted to confirm further, feeling a bit disappointed. Then may I ask, Tingwei, who is the person you like? Sheng Tingwei hesitated for a moment, then looked at Qijin. A faint blush appeared on his face, and his ears seemed a bit warm. The person I like is my master. Qijin never expected that the young man she had painstakingly nurtured for 10 years would fall in love so early, especially with her of all people. Qi Ying was shocked to learn that Sheng Tingwei's affection was directed towards Master Qijin. Qijin, too, was utterly surprised. The original novel depicted the doting Sheng Tingwei falling for the female lead, but now he had rejected the female lead and claimed to be in love with his master. Instead of improving Qi Ying's favorability, Qijin unintentionally became the female lead's romantic rival. How on earth could she salvage this plot? Yao Mo sighed softly. Princess, since this young man already has someone in his heart, we shouldn't force the issue. Let's leave it at that. Qiyin's eyes darkened with a hint of sadness. She never expected Sheng Tingwei to like her master. If he liked someone else, she might have had a chance, but Qijin was the one who had saved her life and was someone she didn't want to compete with. After a moment of contemplation, as if making a firm decision, the little princess clenched her fists. Her eyes were teary as she looked at Qijin and her disciple. I understand. I wish you both a happy future. With that, she turned to leave. Yao Mo, watching Qi Ying in this state, looked worried and bowed to Qijin. I appreciate your hospitality. Qijin awkwardly smiled, instructing Suayon to escort them. With Yao Mo and Suayon gone, only Qijin and Sheng Tingwei remained. The atmosphere between them grew subtly tense. After a moment of silence, neither spoke. Qijin felt extremely nervous, having been single for over 20 years before transmigrating into the book, never having been confessed to. After a long while, the young man finally spoke. He explained somewhat sheepishly, Sorry about it, master. The situation forced me to do that. You know I don't like the princess. I just wanted to find an excuse to fend her off. I hope I didn't startle you. Qijin replied, So, are you saying that your confession to me just now was a joke? Sheng Tingwei nodded slightly, a hint of sorrow in his expression. He continued, Yes, master. You told me I should focus on my studies for now and become the emperor in the future, to release you from the contract and grant you freedom. Relieved upon hearing this, Qijin realized he had used her as a shield. However, Sheng Tingwei didn't stop there. He moved closer, raised an eyebrow, and with an assessing look said, But master, you seem so surprised just now, as if you were afraid I really fell in love with you. Feeling a bit uneasy, Qijin hastily explained, That's impossible. I've lived for 100 years, immune to love. Whoever it is, I won't entertain romantic feelings. There's no future in it. Sheng Tingwei, seeing Qijin's reaction, was taken aback for a moment, then continued with a hint of melancholy. You're right, master. You won't fall for an ordinary man. Qijin nodded affirmatively. Exactly. I have no interest in men. Having you as a disciple is enough. Realizing the need to change the deadlock, Qijin didn't have time for romance. However, unexpectedly, Sheng Tingwei only absorbed the latter part of her statement. His face lit up with joy. Master, you said it yourself. I'm the only disciple you can have. No more entanglements with other men. Hearing this, Qijin felt a subtle and peculiar emotion. The words sounded odd, but upon closer inspection, there was nothing wrong with them. So, Qijin smiled and nodded. Rest assured, I only want to assist you in becoming a great emperor in this lifetime. Seated in the departing carriage, the little princess, her failed confession still lingering, wore her heartache on her face. Yao Mo, pulling out her favorite sweets in an attempt to bring a smile to her face, was met with silence. Previously, Qi Ying had slipped away from the palace, causing Yao Mo great concern. He had tirelessly pursued her, finally finding her on the outskirts of the desolate land of Shadow Kingdom. However, even when reunited, the young princess seemed to have developed feelings for someone else. Not even Yao Mo's carefully chosen sweets could lighten her mood. Qi Ying turned away, lost in thought about the rejection she had just faced. Observing this, Yao Mo felt a pang of discomfort. princess? Are you still thinking about that commoner? He's just a regular guy, not worthy of you." Unexpectedly, Qi Ying erupted in anger, directly venting her frustration at her master. "Why do you all bring up status? Just because the Shadow Kingdom's prince is of noble birth, must I marry him? And just because Sheng Tingwei is a commoner, am I not allowed to like him?" Yao Mo was left speechless by the sharp retort. Qi Ying turned away, recalling some unpleasant memories. "Master, even without Sheng Tingwei, I wouldn't agree to an arranged marriage. I remember when my mother married my father, the promise of a lifetime together ended up as a cruel joke. I don't want to end up depressed and confined in the palace like my mother." Lowering her gaze, Qi Ying left a trail of tears, her words tinged with a sense of desolation. "Master, all I want is a simple and happy life." Hearing the princess's heartfelt confession, Yao Mo remained silent for a moment before speaking softly. "Princess, there's something His Majesty didn't want me to tell you, but seeing you so heartbroken, I can't bear it. In the Shadow Kingdom's royal family, there's an unspoken rule that the princes can only marry after being crowned at the age of 18. The youngest of the 4 princes is only 12 years old, and since your marriage hasn't been specified, you have 6 years after arriving in Shadow Kingdom. During this time, we can change many things." Yao Mo held Qi Ying's hand, reassuring her to let go of her worries. "This arranged marriage is just a temporary strategy of the Dark Kingdom. Trust me, as long as I'm here, I will protect you. You won't be used as a sacrificial pawn for the kingdom." The young man gazed at his master, who had cared for him diligently for a decade, as memories of the past suddenly surged within him. He had once made a pact with his master. When he grew up and ascended to the throne, he would release the guardian spirit, Qijin, from 100 years of confinement, granting her freedom. Unbeknownst to Qijin, the young man's filthy heart harbored a desire to keep her perpetually by his side. Meanwhile, Qijin sat sipping tea in the room when the servant, Suayon, came in with news. "A letter has arrived from the palace," he reported. Qijin, with a calm expression, didn't need to read it to know its contents. According to the novel's storyline, after a decade, the current male lead was to be summoned back for an impending political marriage. Though the narrative had taken a slightly different turn with an earlier encounter between the male and female leads, their eventual union remained inevitable. Contemplating this, Qijin uttered softly, "Ask Tingwei to come see me." Moments later, Sheng Tingwei stood before Qijin, asking, "Master, did you need me for something?" Qijin gazed at the young man she had raised, a sense of melancholy stirring within her. The once underage boy had blossomed into a remarkable young man, yet this exquisitely carved gem would eventually have to bow down before others. Sheng Tingwei caught Qijin's perplexed expression, inquired, "Master, what's happening? Did something occur?" Qijin looked at him and replied earnestly, "The eaglet must leave the nest, and now is your time to become independent." Confused by his master's unusual demeanor, Sheng Tingwei persisted, "Master, what's going on? If you want me to focus on my studies, I'll do it immediately. Don't scare me." With lowered eyes, Qijin whispered, "Would you resent your master for pushing you to study?" Sheng Tingwei hurriedly shook his head. "I know it's for my own good. You've always protected me so carefully. As I grow stronger, I'll protect you." At this point, Qijin, comforted by Sheng Tingwei's words, reached out and said, "Tingwei, what your father, the emperor, wants is for you to return to the palace for a political marriage." Sheng Tingwei, unable to believe it, trembled as he said, "Master, you must be joking with me, right?" Qijin continued, "The union between the 2 countries is crucial. I'm not deceiving you. The emperor has sent a letter, and Princess Qi Ying is arriving in the Shadow Kingdom to choose her husband immediately. This is a letter from your father, and someone has been sent to fetch you." "Qi Ying again?" Sheng Tingwei, now angry and confused, declared, "Master, I don't want to go. I don't want to marry Qi Ying." However, Qijin had no authority in this matter. She couldn't interfere with the emperor's decision. Sheng Tingwei, now frustrated, tossed the letter aside and stood up, declaring loudly, "I don't want to marry anyone else. I just want to be with my master." With that, he turned to leave. Watching his retreating figure, Qijin sighed. Fate, sometimes, was just like that. Resistance wouldn't yield results. Let him be alone for a while to process this. the disciple received the heart-wrenching news that he could no longer be with his master. Overwhelmed by sorrow, he ran alone to the Lake of Illusions, a place etched in his childhood memories. His master had once told him that the lake held a treasure capable of granting wishes. With a desperate desire to obtain this treasure, he wished to never be separated from his master. Sheng Tingwei slowly entered the lake, and a strange voice echoed from its depths. "Who dares to trespass into my domain?" A shadow emerged before him. "I am the Lord of Illusions. Sensing your intense desire, I've appeared in response to your summons. Young boy, what is your wish?" Sheng Tingwei loudly replied, "I want to be with my master forever." On the other side, Qijin, hearing from Suayon that Sheng Tingwei had run towards the Lake of Illusions, felt an overwhelming anxiety, a tinge of hindsight creeping in. She knew the lake was formed by the gathering of grievances, and the male lead in the original story had once fallen into it, succumbing to the temptation of the Lord of Illusions, exchanging his most precious possession for formidable power. With this realization, Qijin's eyes narrowed. "Tingwei, please don't do anything foolish." However, the transaction on the Lake of Illusions had already commenced. Sheng Tingwei stood before the Lord of Illusions, presenting his condition. "You can take away the most precious thing on me, but you must ensure that my master and I stay together forever." The Lord of Illusions, however, did not agree. "Apologies, I don't possess such power. I can only transport you to the future, allowing you to glimpse the outcome of your master-disciple bond. As for altering fate, that depends entirely on your efforts after learning about the future." After a moment of contemplation, Sheng Tingwei, without second thoughts, declared, "All right, I agree to your terms." As his words fell, a dark force began to traverse his body, gradually enveloping him. "Deal sealed. I shall take you to witness the future." At this moment, Sheng Tingwei caught a glimpse of the future. In that otherworldly realm, Qijin was bound, her hands restrained, and her body covered in bruises. "Master, wake up! What happened to you?" Young Sheng Tingwei witnessed his master's tormented state, exclaiming in shock. Yet, within this illusion, he could only helplessly continue to watch. A menacing and gloomy emperor stood above Qijin, disdainfully grasping her chin. However, the Lord of Illusions informed Sheng Tingwei that this was the future version of himself. In this future vision, facing the pleading and suffering Qijin, the older Sheng Tingwei coldly chuckled, summoning his attendants. "Bring someone to scar her face, then chop off her limbs. I want her to live in misery." Helpless, Qijin let out a desperate scream. Young Sheng Tingwei, witnessing the horrifying scene before him, trembled with fear. He muttered to himself, "Impossible. There must be a mistake. This cannot be the future for Master and me." Standing still, he couldn't accept that he, who loved his master so deeply, could commit such atrocities. Yet, the dark figure uttered, "The deal has been sealed. It's time to fulfill the promise. Young boy, I will take the most precious thing from you." As the words faded away, the transaction concluded. When Qijin saw Sheng Tingwei again, he lay unconscious by the lake, seemingly drowned. Though still breathing, he remained unresponsive. In this dire situation, emergency measures were necessary. Qijin was the only one familiar with the technique of CPR in this world. Taking a deep breath, she pressed her lips against Sheng Tingwei's, whispering urgently, "Tingwei, you mustn't get hurt. Please wake up." In his quest to glimpse into the future with his master, Sheng Tingwei traded away the most precious thing from within. When Qijin hurriedly arrived to wake him, the sight before her was startling. Instead of the familiar warmth, Sheng Tingwei wore an expression of cold indifference, his once warm eyes now icy. Concerned, Qijin inquired, "Tingwei, how are you feeling? Is there anything wrong?" However, Sheng Tingwei responded with an icy tone, "Master, what are you doing here?" He turned away and began to walk. Alarmed by his demeanor, Qijin grabbed his hand, saying, "Whether you're angry or not, you can't just run off to the dangerous Lake of Illusion alone." Unexpectedly, Sheng Tingwei, contrary to his usual attitude toward Qijin, nonchalantly replied, "I came here, so what? Why such a big fuss, master?" Caught off guard by his retort, Qijin, hands on her hips, retorted, "You dare talk back to me?" Sensing the tension, Suayon, who was nearby, interjected. Your Highness, Master was genuinely worried about you. Please apologize to her. Sheng Tingwei, however, angered, questioned. Apologize? Why should I apologize? With that, he coldly shrugged off Qijin's grip, adding, I need to pack and prepare to return to the palace. I'm leaving. Feeling the significant shift in Sheng Tingwei's attitude, Qijin suddenly had a bad premonition. For a decade, she had meticulously cared for Sheng Tingwei, understanding his every emotion. Now, this sudden aloofness hinted at something more than met the eye. In this moment, Qijin, filled with anger, summoned the Lord of Illusions, demanding answers about what had been done to Sheng Tingwei. However, the cunning Lord of Illusions replied, This is a transaction between us. You have no right to know. Qijin's face darkened at this, her expression stern. She opened her palm, releasing a gentle touch of magic, and a flame danced on her hand. Is that so? Whether you speak or not, I will set this lake on fire. I'll evaporate every drop of your water. Hearing Qijin's threat, the Lord of Illusions was horrified, loudly accusing her of breaking the rules. Qijin had no time to wait. With a bit more magical force, numerous fireballs danced on the lake's surface. The Lord of Illusions, now fearful, had no choice but to confess, That young boy traded his most precious thing with me to glimpse into your future together. Qijin questioned, And what is his most precious thing? The Lord of Illusions slyly smiled. It's the feelings he harbors for you after a decade of companionship. Quite delightful, I must say. I'm very satisfied. As the Lord of Illusions finished speaking, Suayon, astonished, added, No wonder he treated Master so coldly, like a stranger. Qijin felt like her world was collapsing. Her heart turned cold. Unable to accept the truth in an instant, she realized that all her efforts over the years, the bond she painstakingly nurtured with her disciple, had crumbled. Her protective talisman was gone, and the relationship between master and disciple had regressed to square one.